as each of you start introducing yourself in the chat, I would love to introduce our panelists for the evening. So with us, we have Guy, Tarek, and Stefania. I don't see Stefania on the screen. Yes, I can.
Yes. Yeah.
I can see you now. Yes, perfect. Awesome. Guy, Tarek, Stefania, thank you so much for joining us today. Allow me to quickly introduce each of you to the students. Now, with us, we have Guy Arthur. Guy is the founder of the Guy Arthur School of English, and he is the lecturer at University of Stuttgart, Germany. And hi, Guy.
Oh.
Right. And with us, we also have Tarek Malouf. Tarek is from Lebanon and is currently an intern at a French Insurtech scale-up in Paris. Tarek has just completed his master's in marketing and digital media at ESCP's Madrid campus. And some of his favorite things to do are listening to music. Even better, he says, when he gets to watch it live. And he loves playing video games and basketball, I think like a lot of us, right? And with us, hi, Tarek.
Hello, Malavika, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here.
Fantastic. And with us, we also have our third co-panelist, Stefania Fuente. Stefania has just completed her master's in marketing and digital media at ESCP's Madrid campus. What's special about Stefania's profile is that she has been the recipient of various scholarships, about which we will learn more through this panel discussion, right? And Stefania says that some of her personal interests include arts, technology, and business. Hi, Stefania. Very good evening.
Hi, Malavika. Hi, team. Nice to see you all.
Hi. Awesome. So nice to have each of you on board for this panel discussion. We have so many different point of views and, of course, so many insights around how students can, work around their education and life abroad, on a budget. Now, as we head into this discussion, please make sure you share your questions in the Q&A section on this Zoom workshop. And if you have any thoughts, any suggestions, you put it up in the chat section, right? So all your questions in the Q&A, right? Now, without further ado, let's head straight into our, discussion for the evening. Now, the first thing I want to do is have a quick poll with each of you guys out here. And my question for the poll is, how are you supporting your higher education abroad? Right? Very, very important question if you are a study abroad aspirant. So you would see a pop-up on your screen. How are you primarily supporting your higher education? Are you taking your family's support? So your parents are probably paying in for your education. Is it from your own income? Are you self-employed? Are you working in the corporate and that's how you're saving up and putting together the budget to study abroad? Or is this going to be funded by a financial loan? A lot of students whom we know prefer to take a financial loan. So is that a choice? Is that your primary source of supporting your education? Or of course, are you already a recipient of a scholarship, or are you having super high chances of getting a scholarship? If it's one of these options, click one of these options. Or if you're really not sure at this point of time, then you can also say not sure. It's completely all right. It's absolutely fine. Pick one of these options, and I would love to learn, all the panelists would love to know what is your preferred mode of setting your budget. Okay, last 5 seconds to answer this question. Okay, let's see what everyone has to say about how they are supporting their education abroad. Okay, very interesting. Now, I have the results here, and they look pretty interesting, right? So I see that majority of you want to fund your education through scholarships. Valid point, and we have a very detailed discussion around that plan for you today. And I see following up, this is 22% of you believe that you would like to take a financial loan. Agreed, absolutely viable. And believe me, majority of the students who go to study abroad pursue their education with the use of financial loans. So you're on the right track. And I see a bunch of you are not sure. A lot of you, actually 16% of you, feel that you will fund it yourself with your parents or your guardians funding it, and a small percentage of you feel that this will be supported by your own self. Again, kudos to that if that's how you're planning it out. Great. Now we will take this discussion forward with a few really important pointers that we have planned for you. Okay, so let's talk about understanding the costs involved, right? So panelists, over to you. Would love to know what is it like, the costs, academic, non-academic.
Well, I can start talking about the academic costs, and afterwards I will talk a bit more about the scholarship part. When you are planning to travel abroad for studies, the budget is key on this planning. And the academic costs sometimes are covered by, as we were seeing, like financial aid or scholarships, family support. And within the academic costs, you might think that there is like the general one, that it's the tuition, but then you always have other type of costs that you need to take into consideration and that maybe you were not aware of. Additional fees, it can be for insurance, it can be for the paperwork that you need to do if you require a visa to go to the other country, it can be for books, it can be like any detail or anything related with academic costs that the university that you're intending to go, you need to take into consideration. And I think it's key to start a planning before beforehand, like not just what you're interested on, but also like how you can achieve this goal. Like if you are thinking of studying abroad, I think you should see it as a goal, and which are the previous steps that you need to do in order to get to that goal. And that includes the academic cost and the non-academic cost. That Tarek is an expert in the non-academic cost. But I'll discuss a bit more on terms of the academic cost in a bit, and I'm gonna share the floor to Tarek. I'll share the screen in this case.
So as Estefania said, everybody, so there's a lot of costs to be considered outside of the academic spectrum, I guess. And the thing is while these costs might be individually not necessarily the biggest points of spending in your move abroad, it's very important to consider that all of these small costs together tend to rack up and start to become quite a considerate amount of money that is really important to keep in mind. Now, this is for the academic costs. When it comes to the non-academic costs, afterwards, it just depends. Obviously, there's a lot of variables that go into play. So it's very important to consider what lifestyle, what are your sources of entertainment, where do you find, where do you tend to spend most of your budget, let's say. And this is something that's very important to consider because different cities have different price points in different forms of entertainment, let's say, or even something as simple as sports and athleticism. Even something like that could vary from one city to another. So it's very important to keep in mind the discrepancies, I would say, between the different cities, and to keep in mind the different I would say value attributed to different entertainment sources outside of the university. And this is something to constantly keep in mind and to always have an idea of before moving to a new city or before moving to a new country in general. Even within the same continent, so even within Europe, there are very differing costs. Even moving from two countries such as, let's say, Spain or France, costs that could go from rent to transport to simple entertainment to even groceries or a restaurant or a bar. Any possible cost could vary greatly between two very similar cities. So make sure you are always very meticulous in your research, and always try to have an account for everything. So again, as I said, supermarket, groceries, your regular spending, all of this, and of course we will get deeper into these as we progress in the panel. But just very important to keep in mind these general thoughts on non-academic costs specifically.
All right, great. Guy, what are your thoughts?
Well, just to add to what Tarek said, obviously you do have to do the research. The countries do vary. And one thing you could do is inform yourself by asking other people who have already made the experience that you would like to make. Joining a Facebook, do we want to get into the expat sites now, or is that later?
We'll come to that eventually.
Oh, we'll come to that now. Okay, so then I'll wait. Okay, fine.
No worries. Okay. Anyway, I think, Guy, if you'd like to bring it up, let's discuss about the expats as well.
Okay, fine. So what you'd want to do, first of all, is join an expat site or expat group on Facebook or something. Those, for example, if you wanted to go to Barcelona, you'd look for a page called Expats in Barcelona or English Speakers in Barcelona, and then you can inform yourself. You can ask people, what does it cost for an apartment? Are apartments easy to find? What is the cost of living? What are the extra costs? What does a train cost? How much does food cost? And other people who are also on a budget will be able to help you with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So to sum it up, folks, right, understand there are different parameters that affect your academic costs, your non-academic costs, as Tariq, Stefania, and Guy mentioned. And to closely evaluate what each of these costs would be, do your research, connect with, alumni from a certain college that you're probably wanting to go, connect with different Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups. You would be able to relate and understand from the experiences of what others have gone through, right? That's one of the best ways to learn and visualize in advance as to what your costs are going to be like, right? This was very important. Now, apart from the structuring of those costs, we also wanted to understand the impact of scholarships, especially when a lot of you want to fund your education with a scholarship, right? So Stefania, would love to know from you about how students can go about this.
Yeah, the scholarships is very interesting, and here I'm gonna share my personal experience, and every situation I'm sure is gonna be different, and I hope this can help you to have an idea on how can you go, or if you feel related somehow. But I know that every situation is completely different. In my case, I'm from Ecuador, and since I studied my university, I wanted to get a scholarship. So the ways I finance my education from the undergrad to my master's has been with my family support and through scholarships. And I also work part-time, but I'm gonna go to that point afterwards. But the part of the scholarships, I think that since I was in high school, I was like very focused in that I wanted to get a scholarship. So I was doing things to kind of show a profile that could be attractive somehow, that I could at the end build the storytelling that could be interesting for the university that I was intending to go. So I was working, or I was participating in models of the United Nations. I was becoming the student representative, not just for the scholarship. I also enjoy doing this type of activities, but also because I knew that this will be adding points at the end. And also, like, we have the test and we have other factors into consideration. So when I was in Ecuador, the first scholarship I applied was to study in Ecuador as well. And in that moment, it was just like doing a few research before, knowing what are the steps to apply for the scholarship and going through it. But then I studied in the US. I did an exchange program in Michigan State, and I also did my master's in Madrid. And for both of them, I got a scholarship. And the way I did it and the way I got them was different in both cases. The first one, that was exchange program, there was an option with my university in Ecuador that they had agreements and partnerships with different universities around the world. So I could just do some research, and I had to have a specific GPA to be able to apply to that type of scholarship. And the scholarships were like, or either a full scholarship, a partial scholarship. And here it was also important in the planning before to realize like what were the goals for me to go into that place. Like I wanted to explore the culture. I wanted to have a university that was relevant as well. And also like the reality of my budget and how much money I had to spend for this a whole year. So I had to talk with my parents to see like what they were thinking, if they would support me, how much they would support me. Like my parents were very supportive when it came to education. So it was like, yeah, tuition, here you have books, here you have insurance, here you have, but then like the academic, like the non-academic costs, I'll tell you afterwards how I managed that part. But then the process that I did was applying through the university in Ecuador. I follow a process. This process is always like hard and long, and there might be a point that you think that it's useless to be through so many paperwork and so many requirements, but at the end of the day, it's totally worth it. And many people has been through that phase of feeling like overwhelmed, and that I feel like it's kind of roller coaster where you are starting the process, you're getting tired, and then you get the results, you get the scholarship, and the whole different and new experience starts. So when I went to the US, I got a full scholarship to go to Michigan State University, and by that time the scholarship included tuition and the room and the meal plan, and that was like around 30 or 40,000 dollars, which by myself I was not able to cover those costs. And I was also interested, for instance, in that case, I had to choose between this option that was a full scholarship or having an experience in Europe, but I had a partial scholarship there. So according to my future plans, to the way my parents could support me financially at that moment, and I realized that going to the US was the best option. So it was in this time with the university and an agreement with the university in the US. And then when I went to the master's in Madrid, I also applied for a scholarship. In this case, it was just a partial scholarship. It was again a long process, and I had to do a lot of research because it's not that they are gonna tell you, here you have a scholarship. It's like you read pages and do the research. It's like part of the process. Like if you can start, and my advice would be, if you can start not just thinking on a scholarship, but on the whole program that you want to do abroad, with at least a year in advance, it's great because it helps you to do like the more research, the better. You can even realize that the thing that you wanted to go was not the first option that you end up doing, not just because it was not it was not it was not the option, at least not the best option for you. I remember that I wanted to go to other countries. I wanted to go either to the Netherlands or to Italy, but at the end I ended up in Spain. And it was for many reasons. It was the best program that I could find there. I got the scholarship there. And at the end, I don't regret that, because now my long term was also by that time to be able to stay in Europe, for instance. And now I'm still in Europe. My native language is Spanish. So for me, coming to Madrid also makes sense. And in that moment, it was also an international university that I got a scholarship from. But there are many ways. For instance, and this is also personal experience, my brother got a scholarship from the government of Ecuador, but that time it was kind of easy because you just had to show that you were approved into one of the top universities, and they will cover everything, no matter the cost. But then you have some requirements that you have to come back to the country for double the time of your studies. So if it was a master of 2 years, you had to come back to Ecuador for 4 years. And for instance, in my future planning, that was not what I wanted. So that's why I didn't choose to go through the government scholarship, but I could have done it. Or even like there are some fields that offer more scholarships, like engineering. In my case, I'm more communication, so I had to find other ways to reach the scholarships. Or here we have also private organizations. The biggest advice I can give you now is to start planning ahead. Like, I'm not saying that 1 year before you need to know what you want to do, but the more research you do, it will lead you to the final decision of, okay, for these 20 reasons, I want to go to this country, to this university, to this program. And part of the reasons is also the budget and how you're going to fund your studies. Even afterwards, we're going to talk about the part-time jobs and everything. I can say that for me, choosing to come to Madrid was key because I was able to speak the language. So it was also easier to afterwards be able to get a part-time job. But I can share that from my experience. And if you have more questions afterwards, we can discuss it for sure.
Amazing. Stefania, knowing that, students are empowered with all these scholarships is so, frutifying. It's really a success story to receive a scholarship, a full scholarship worth 30 to $40,000 through your undergraduation, and then again go ahead and receive a scholarship for your graduation in Madrid. I think that takes a lot of effort. I feel we just want to focus a little bit on that as well. Can you tell me how much time did you invest in terms of finding about all of these scholarships and to start applying for them? And how did you apply for these?
I think the greatest advantage that we have now is the internet. And honestly, like for instance, when I was doing my exchange program, it was from the university, so that was also a reliable source to go to the careers, to the student services and talk with them and get some information. I remember that I also had other students that went to the same university, so I was talking with them, like trying to make the right decision. And by that time, I remember that in the third year I could go into the exchange program, but I was sure that since my junior year I wanted to study abroad. So I also put effort like in the grades. I also tried to do some extra activities, like and I was even like, I remember maybe once or twice in my junior year, I was checking for the requisites or the requirements to apply for the scholarship. So I knew, I was sure that the requirements would change, but at least I had a brief idea that I needed good grades, I needed to do a cover letter, I needed to do some steps in order to get that scholarship. So for my exchange program, I think I was sure since my junior year, but then in my sophomore, I started to apply for it because there's also this important part is that you have deadlines for scholarships. So the more you can look in advance for it, the more you can know about them and when are the deadlines, and you can prepare to apply. Because if you're planning like 6 months before or something like this, you might find scholarships that they are already closed and that the deadline was like 2 or 3 months ago. So it's already too late, and maybe you want to reconsider and maybe wait for the next opening and go the next year to the studies. So in my sophomore year, I applied for it, and
Sophomore year, can you explain what that means?
The second year.
Not everyone would be aware.
Oh yeah, like my second year, I was applying for it in the fall semester, like in the first semester of the second year, and I received the news that I was accepted at the beginning of the second semester of the second year, and then I followed the next steps to get the scholarship. So I think that I was going to study abroad in August, and I had everything ready, including the scholarship, by February or March. So I just had to do the visa paperwork and all the other paperwork that I had to keep doing. But when I was doing my master was a bit different because I wanted to finish my studies and right after go for my master's, but it didn't happen that way because I realized, and many people advised me, that it was better if I worked first to see like what I wanted to do and where I wanted to focus. And indeed it helped me because I studied PR and communications and I was working for a public relations agency, and I realized that's not what I wanted to do for my master's. And that's why I decided to do something different. And in that case was different because I was doing a lot of research in the internet, like even like 2 years in advance. But for me, I wanted to do a master at a business school, but now you have so many business schools that I was not sure how to choose the right one. And then I had some friends actually from the US that are European. So I started asking them, like, what do you consider the best top business schools in Europe? Why would you choose them? According to which program? So in that phase, I was doing a lot of research by myself when I had free time, and also like asking to my friends and from their perspective So if you have also, so if you also have friends or colleagues or family in the countries where you want to study, it's great to ask them,
Right,
or in this, even in the same region, to know what
right.
they think about the course that you want to do.
Amazing. I think, this gives so much perspective in terms of how much hard work actually goes into putting together your application for a scholarship, right? Which is, of course, one of the major parameters that helps you fund your overseas education on a budget. Now, if you closely observed what Stefania said, her hard work, her effort started right off from her high school days, where you probably you were working on your scores at your grades at college, at school. You also were looking at your exchange programs, which helped you, in fact, fund your education in a way. So all of those matters come into play when you are applying for a scholarship. How robust is your application is a good question that you need to start asking yourself. And a couple of years of time investment would be required in building that stellar profile that will help you get a valuable scholarship, right? So
Yeah.
that was really insightful.
And the only thing that I would add to that is that don't be shy about asking for feedback or for extra information during your process of building your profile for the scholarship. Like if you have family or friends that you know that they can be of help, knowing like, hey, what do you think of my cover letter? What do you think of my resume? What should I add or remove? Because it can be very insightful to receive external feedback, so they see it from another perspective. Or even in my case, like I had family in the US, so when I was writing the cover letter for the US, I even asked them and they were like, oh no, here, for instance, the words like don't say second year, say sophomore, for instance, like try to look more familiar and try to build something, as we say now, it's a kind of a storytelling that makes you different from the rest. In my case, I'm Ecuadorian, I'm a woman, I want to build an international career, but for anyone, like anyone has a personal life, a personal situation that they can transform it into a story that can be appealing for any scholarship.
Brilliant, brilliant. So major point, have a strong narrative, have a strong story around, of course, the original pointers, or from your life, right? So that will really help you with the scholarship. Now, Tariq, Guy, any pointers that you would like to add to this?
I mean, I wouldn't say I have better advice than Estefania for sure. It was super comprehensive, and for sure she has better experience getting scholarships than I do.
Come
But
on.
I can say one thing I can definitely confirm and agree with one thing Estefania said towards the end. It's that despite everything that you're doing, don't. There's just one thing outside of the academic efforts you could make. It's a bit. I want to say it's a bit cliche, but embrace your own identity. We're not in times where you need to be extremely conformative of the university to which you're applying to, or to the country to which you're applying to. Diversity is very important. Embrace where you come from, and embrace show the value added in that you can bring as an individual to the program you're applying to. This is something very important, because never
Yes.
that a diversity of backgrounds always leads to diversity of ideas, and it just becomes a more attractive. Think about it from the university, or from the academic institution you're applying to. Look at it from their point of view. They don't want to give the scholarships, the limited amount of scholarships they have, to the identical, very similar people. They want to diversify their student base, to create this sense of different ideas, different backgrounds, combining to give more productivity and to give more outside of the box thinking. So always embrace that side of things. Show them what your value added is, being a person from your background and being who you are individually.
Brilliant, brilliant. Absolutely. Very important point, Main. Understand how you bring diversity to the university. What would they be proud of to have on board as one of their students, right? In terms of is it an ethical background? Is it the kind of industry that you come from, or anything exceptional that you've done? All of those things add up. Guy, what would your thoughts be?
Okay, well, I can't speak too much on scholarships because I never had one. So when I went through university, I got government loans with low interest,
Yes.
which I'm still paying off, which is, it's quite difficult. You pay them off for about 20 years. And then I also got money from the military. So we have a program, if you join the military, when you get out, they pay for your studies. So this is what I did. But if you can't get a scholarship, you know, there are countries. So at the moment I live in Germany and it's very cheap, or the tuition at least is cheap. It's an expensive country, but the tuition is extremely cheap. So you wouldn't actually need a scholarship to pay for the tuition. I mean, obviously you have to pay to live, you have to pay for your apartment and your food, but there are ways around it if you do not get one. But again, I have no experience with scholarships.
And if I can just add one thing, because I saw it in the chat earlier, someone mentioned an important point. So we've talked about the academic aspects of scholarships, but someone mentioned the value placed on extracurricular activities. So I'm guessing whatever it may be, whether it's something such as the MUN or something athletic even. Unfortunately, I would love to give a clear and a specific answer, but I can give you just a kind of a ballpark idea. It goes back to looking at the value placed by every university and every country on the different extracurricular activities that you have been active in for your entire life. So for sure, there will be universities and countries where, for example, athleticism is more valued and where you can apply for an athletic scholarship, where your grades need to be a specific level, but your athletic ability and your attendance and your athletic contribution to the university standing is going to be much more valued. So I want to give a clearer answer, and I want to say that I know personally about this, but I don't, and I would encourage you to look at the which universities place how much value on which extracurricular activities, because these are very important things, and it's important to keep them in mind that not all scholarship are academic, and even the non-academic scholarships are extremely accessible if you dedicate the time and the effort required.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very important point. Keep an eye out for both academic and non-academic scholarships, right, guys?
Yeah.
This was very insightful in terms of scholarships. I have a bunch of questions lined up for this as well. We'll come to those in a bit. But before that, I want to talk to you all about how you can put together a few part-time job opportunities to get on a budget, right? So again, Guy, Tariq, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, well, so you need to first ask yourself, can you speak the local language? So some of you might want to study in Europe, doing an English program, but in a country where English is not the native language. And so basically you don't have a lot of options. The first option is to learn the language, but we all know this takes a bit of time. You could also get a job at the university. These normally pay minimum wage. It's going to be very hard to support yourself off of that, but it's sort of a supplement to the money that you hopefully brought with you. Also, you can teach English online. There are a lot of companies, mostly based out of China, who will pay you around about $10 to $15 an hour to teach children English. And they're desperate for people. There's such a huge demand. And you can make your own hours. You can sit in front of the laptop 2 or 3 hours a day and teach people English, assuming that your English is good enough. If you live in a country where most people speak English, even if it's not the native language, you could work at a student bar and get away with speaking English, and that's usually not a problem. But I know from experience, when I came to Germany, I wasn't able to speak any German. And I think when you work in the country and you need the language, even if you're not a language person, you will learn it really quickly, because, and I always say, if I can do it, anyone can do it, because I didn't think I was a language person. Did you want to add something, Tarek?
No, I completely agree. Actually, I was going to wait and just echo your sentiment, because I completely agree with you, and don't think that even if your English, let's say, is not the most fluent, or it's only a work in progress, let's say, use so if as Guy said, if you're in a non-English speaking country, then for sure the language barrier is going to be an issue to find a job, or to find a part-time job that's worth dedicating your time for, despite the university constraints and your time constraints, given how busy you will be for your academics. But keep in mind that sometimes the best way to learn a language and to kind of improve it and get it to a fluent level is to actually practice it on the daily, like in your part-time job. Don't hesitate to interact. At the end of the day, and this is something I will emphasize on later on, whichever country you choose to move to, locals will appreciate you going the extra mile and trying to speak their language. Think about it this way. If I was in Lebanon and a foreigner came to me and asked me and started speaking to me in English, I would tell him and answer him in English. But if I saw a foreigner trying to speak to me in Arabic and going through the effort of speaking to me Arabic, it's all the more appreciated. You never forget that you are the one who is coming to a foreign country. It is always better seen that you take the extra step and you try to blend in and to learn the culture and the language of that country. It's much better and there's a better light shown upon it than if you went there and tried to enforce your language and to try to set even bigger language barriers than there already are. So embrace the countries you're moving into, but we'll talk about that more afterwards in a minute.
And from my side, I just have two things to add. The first one is like consider the legal requirements that you might have when you go to another country, because every country has different regulations. And even as a student, there are some laws that allow you to work for specific hours, more or less. And in my case, for instance, when I was into the US, I also wanted to work part-time, but it was super complicated. And I was there just for 1 year. So I had to get the social security number. Then I needed to get an approval. So again, it was like some process to follow until I could start working. So since I was just a year, I didn't put much effort. And I think that I didn't do also enough research before going to the US. So I thought that, oh, I'm going to arrive to the US, it's going to be super easy and I'm going to be able to find a part-time job. But when I arrived there, it was like, no, it's not that easy. You have some requirements, you need to do these steps. So it was different to what I was used to do in Ecuador. So if you really consider that you need to do a part-time job while studying abroad, also research before, ask people in advance so you are familiar with what are the law, what are the requirements. And when I was in Spain, also like the law was different. I had to sign a type of agreement. I had to talk with the company. So there are always like different steps to consider regarding part-time jobs, and either if it is within the university or outside the university. So legal requirements is important to know regarding part-time jobs. And the second point is that in my case, I did work before going to study abroad. I found it an easier way to get some extra money and to avoid all these legal requirements and all this paperwork, to work in my home country that I already knew how to work. I already knew people. So before going to study abroad, for instance, in my exchange program, I work with my family as in a part-time job for a few months. So with that money, I use it for the non-academic costs, for instance. And I think it can be a good idea because it's way easier to work in your home country where you know how it works, when you know the requisites, when you know more people that can give you a part-time job, make some savings, and then go and have fun when you're studying abroad. And then maybe if you don't even need to study abroad, to work a part-time job when you're studying abroad.
And Malak, if I can add just one, sorry, yeah, go ahead, Guy, sorry.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say, don't assume you're going to get a job. Always have a plan B. You might not get a job. Unemployment can be high in certain countries, in certain regions. And, we have this Corona issue at the moment. It'll probably take some time for us to recover from that. And there are plenty of locals that need jobs, of course. So you know, try to get a job, but always have a plan B. Are you going to be able to get money some way, somehow, if you don't find a job? So thank you, Tarek.
Amazing. Amazing.
Of
Great
course.
points, guys. Yes,
Just
Tarek.
one last thing. Don't hesitate to get creative with the jobs you're looking for. So here we've kind of segmented it into online and offline jobs. And within the offline jobs, you have really, it's really surprising what type of jobs you can find that'll give you a lot of experience that you did not, that you wouldn't have found anywhere else. So for me personally, I worked a part-time job throughout my entire, I mean, 2/3 of my bachelor's degree back home. So I have some experience with kind of balancing the part-time and university life. So while it is tricky to balance, it'll be tough in the beginning, but afterwards, when you start to get your priorities right and you start to know when you can kind of put more of your time into the job, more of time to the university, you start to get better at it, of course. But back to my original point, get creative with the jobs, the type of jobs that you can find. So obviously you can work in a restaurant, you can work as a waiter, you can work as a, I don't know, if you're a DJ, you can work as a DJ if you have that kind of talent, for example. But I've personally worked in something as simple as an escape room. See, that, for example, is something that is very low requirement in terms of your level of conversing. So if you're moving to it's a very low skill level. You don't really need to be good at any one thing, or you don't need to be a professional of the service industry or someone who has waiting experience or managing experience. So just if you're moving to an English speaking country, don't hesitate to kind of look for jobs outside the box. Something like as simple as an escape room can teach you to deal with all sorts of customers, all sorts of clients, handle, how do you say, cashier, for example, just handling a cashier, the accounting side of a small business. All of these things are very small skills that are very easily, you can take them with you as you get out of this personal job and move on to bigger things and to bigger, they're small skills that can always come in handy. And they don't really need much pre-requirements to qualify for. So really don't hesitate to get creative, look for something that you can enjoy, not just make money out of, but you can enjoy no matter how little the pay might be, because at the end of the day, it is a part-time job. But really, don't hesitate to look for things that might be a little unconventional or unusual, all right?
Yes, yes, and my gosh, such valuable points. I hope you all are making note of these. Very quickly, want to touch upon TA and GA. A lot of you have asked what that is. I think Guy initially covered it when he mentioned universities also offer opportunities to work, of course, at a very, it's a very average wage, but of course, teaching assistant is TA, and of course, a general assistant, if I remember correctly, is a GA, where you can work with the administration of the university, or you can work under a professor. That's another way to earn part-time, right? I think, some very important points covered through the past few minutes. Remember the legalities of the country, the immigration process. What are the important limiting factors that will allow you to pursue a part-time, right? So please be mindful of that. Again, if you can gather work experience before you leave, not only does it prepare you to work in this new country, because working and studying parallelly is a challenge, is going to be difficult. So kindly prepare yourself for that. Very tricky balance, rightly mentioned. And of course, be creative with jobs. Something as simple as a cashier at a supermarket would help you learn management skills, and something as fun as being a makeup artist, a freelance makeup artist, or teaching English online. Things like these will really help you get a wage, something that can partially support you. Now, one important question that came up on part-time jobs before I forget was, can I solely support my education with part-time jobs? Any thoughts on that, guys?
So just to kind of get a better idea of what the scope of the question is, is it meant that you want to cover the educational expenses, or do you mean just surviving outside of the university with the part-time job? So educational expenses.
Yeah.
I feel, and I think maybe guys, Fania will echo my sentiment on this. I think that part-time jobs in a foreign country are typically, I would say, not enough to be self-sustainable, because at the end of the day, you are a foreigner and you don't have any qualifications as far as the country you're going to is concerned. So getting a decent pay worth becoming self-sustainable over, or to even cover academic costs. Even something, let's say something as simple as buying an academic books. We all know that university books tend to be extremely expensive and with very little, like say, marginal utility. So after a year, you're done with it and you want to get rid of it as fast as possible because you paid crazy amounts of money for it. But I wouldn't say, I mean, I wouldn't encourage it. If you think that you have the skill set and you think you have the ability to find a very decent job and that you can become self-sustainable, then all the more power to you. But I wouldn't recommend it. I would strongly not disrecommend it, because university tends to take quite a bit of your time, and any job worth paying the university with is going to take up a significant chunk of your time as well, because at the end of the day, you're not going to get paid to work half of your day, or to work half of your day resting on your laurels. It's either going to be a killer of a job where you're going to have to be working very intensely for possibly short or for medium to long hours. And think about it this way: at the end of the day, it's most cases it's a zero-sum game. So if you dedicate too much to your job, your academics are going to take a hit. If you dedicate too much to the academics and you really want the job and you really have placed a lot of value in this job, the job is going to take a hit. So the balance is very, very careful, and be careful and don't overestimate your ability to commit time to a job and to do the same for the university. It's normal to not be able to completely commit to both. We're all human at the end of the day, so just be mindful of this. It's very, and I wouldn't recommend sustaining your entire academic course with a part-time job. It's quite a difficult endeavor, and definitely not anybody can do it.
So mostly a no, right? And to add to that, honestly, technically, if you're going in for your visa interview, they would expect you to be able to support, a major chunk of your expenses before you even get there. They need a record of how you can support yourself. So just saying that you will support yourself once you get there with a part-time job, not the best kind of plan. No,
yeah, it's a big no-no, and it's a big no-no, and I mean it'll shoot you in the knee for your visa chances, for your actual residency permit chances. It's as far as the visa or the embassy or the country is concerned, you're not a very reliable candidate for them. You're not a very organized candidate, let's say.
Exactly. Fantastic. We're very quickly going to go towards some of the hacks and tips to remember to stay within your budget. So once you get there, there's a lot that you need to do to, for this balancing act. Guy, let's start with you. What do you think are things students should remember?
So obviously you have to, the first thing on the list is the most important. You have to make a budget as best you can. And you have to do this based on knowledge that you might or might not have. And this is not the easiest thing. You can ask questions. Again, I have to bring up the expat Facebook site again, find out how much things cost and make a budget. But more importantly, keep making the budget. Go over your budget every month or every 2 weeks if you have to. There are always surprises. Maybe you'll earn a little bit of money here and there, and then you can adjust your budget accordingly. And, remember, you're there to study. You're there to get a degree. But you also want to enjoy yourself, and you want to make sure that you can experience some of the things, in the foreign country. Otherwise, you can just stay home. I mean, that would defeat the whole purpose of going abroad. So make sure you always have some money set aside for things that you want to do. Exactly. So if I go down the list, the standard of living, you've got the prices of apartments. You can inform yourself by asking other people what this costs. There are dorms. I don't know what it's like in France or Spain, but the dorms, the student homes are very hard to come by in Germany. You have to be very lucky to get one. Better is to get a roommate, and even better is to organize that roommate while you're at home. I mean, there are a lot of people moving out of their apartments looking for someone to take their places. Finding an apartment in Europe, a place to live in Europe, is extremely difficult. It's just full. If you have a cheap apartment, you might have 100 people who want it. So again, it's a good idea to organize that at home. I don't want to take up the whole list. Do either of you want to comment on either of those?
Oh, no, I mean, I 100% agree with Guy on both of those aspects. I mean, making a budget is for sure. I mean, the entire panel is about setting on a budget. So if you're starting off without making the budget, I'm not really sure what the next step is. But I mean, really make your budget and be very meticulous and try to and constantly update it, because like I said, there's always going to be costs you never you didn't foresee. For example, something as simple, let's say you're installing your Wi-Fi connection at home. You've accounted for the monthly fee that you're going to be paying, but you don't account for the installation fee of the Wi-Fi, which is almost triple of the actual monthly fee. So, I mean, there's going to be costs that pop up left and right that you're not going to be expecting, or that you're going to start to kind of be surprised by. Always be ready to make adjustments to your budget, and just like you're going to have some money set aside to enjoy, give yourself a few, let's say a few bucks to kind of, in case something I mean, you have a cost that comes out of nowhere that you didn't really foresee. Always have kind of like a little cushion to help yourself. We don't want anybody to be on edge, to be on the edge, and to not have enough money to make it through the end of the week, let's say, or something like that. So always kind of be ready to adapt your budget. And when it comes to the standard of living, not just the rent and finding someone to live with, but also the processes that go into finding housing. For example, finding a house is extremely, I mean, in comparison to France, finding a house in Spain was considerably easier than finding one in France, because there are so many processes, but so many processes to go through in depending on the country you're in, to kind of make your potential future landlord, because I mean, most of us are going to be renting or finding a student dorms. Landlords need to be sure that they're not letting in someone who is going to be a danger or a liability to them. So kind of always make sure of not just the budget, but the processes involved in finding a house and finding just accommodation in general. And this point, I really want to accentuate the third point in this list on the left, which is blending in with the locals. So in every country in the world, there's more touristically attractive parts of the city or of the country. And obviously, I mean, so touristic centers tend to be more expensive. Let's just say it the way it is. Places that are more of tourist attractions are going to be more comfortable charging you with more money for the exact same services that you could find somewhere else. The difference being that this one you know of because it's the touristic center, and whenever you search it on Google, let's say, it's going to be the top thing you find every time. But don't hesitate to blend in. So this goes back, you can tie it in with the language barrier and learning a new language and trying to make yourself comfortable. Speaking in English, or speaking in a foreign language to the country you've moved in, is going to push people to recommend more touristic places, because at the end of the day, you're not someone who's even making an effort to blend in, or you're not even trying to be someone who's moved, for example, to Spain or to Germany. Make an effort to blend in. Try to be one of the people that, I mean, it's like they say, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So just try to speak the language, try to blend in. It'll put you under a nicer light for the locals. They will be more open to giving you the local attractions that are definitely going to be less expensive to you and are going to be probably more fun, because I mean, if that's what everybody else is doing, there's probably something to it. The tourist attractions are really low effort and high expense entertainment options, really, most times. So don't hesitate to kind of ask around, talk to strangers on the street. Whenever you talk to a stranger, even if you're gonna make a bunch of mistakes and you're gonna feel kind of stupid, make those mistakes and feel a little stupid for a couple of seconds. You'll see how much more it's appreciated by the locals that you are taking that extra step and trying to learn the language and trying to be one of them. It'll make them more to send you to the right places, the fun places, and to even, I don't know, maybe make new friends. Who knows?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And even some of
Guys,
the tips.
let me just chime in real quick. We have the last 2 minutes, so
Okay.
I'll have to pause you. Exactly, we never even realized that it's time's flown fast, so fast, and I just want to quickly announce the giveaway we have for all the students who've joined us today. So, folks, we have a giveaway for you. It's a study abroad checklist, which has all the details around, studying abroad, your applications, your scholarships. It's a bit.ly/checklist giveaway. Now, this is something that you can check out in the chat section as well. My team's going to share the details in the chat right now in a few seconds. And yes, don't forget to join in our session tomorrow with our founder, Ashish Fernando, as he talks about scholarships in detail. So that's another session where you get to learn about that once again. Not that, Stefania, you've shared so many valuable thoughts. So thank you for that. Now, I think we'll head to the questions and answers if we have time. But before we close, we'll quickly talk about iSchoolConnect as well. iSchoolConnect is a tech company, and we assist students through the whole process of studying abroad. So right from the first step, where each of you are looking for information around which country is right for you, which university, which course would best suit your profile, we can talk about, or we can help you with that entire process, your journey, whether it's your application form, your essays, SOPs, your letter of recommendation, your visa applications, your financials, your loans, your scholarship application. We assist students through that entire process. Now, the details are in the chat right now. You can look at it, you can evaluate each of those, the giveaway is there, the website link is there, your WhatsApp number is there. So make sure you ping in and you check in with us for each of those details, right? The giveaway will reach you in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that in your inboxes. Now, we will also, of course, head towards our next session in literally in the next few seconds. But before we do that, I just want to say a quick thank you for our panelists. Such a detailed session, such a valuable session. For all the students who've joined in today. I can see in the chat section the amount of questions that you've answered and taken up. I think that's so valuable. Thank you so much, Guy. Thank you, Tariq. Thanks, Stefania. This was truly an incredible session, one of the best we've had so far. So once again, thank you so much.
Thank
you.
And thanks for your attention, everybody, by the way.
Yes,
thanks to everyone. We hope it could be of help. And remember, every situation is different, but there's always a way.
Amazing, amazing. Cannot wait to start the next session for the evening, the final session for the evening. Something I don't want any of you to miss, because it is one of the most admirable panelists that we have on board. And this session is going to be on how you can write a powerful statement of purpose, right? So with me for this session, I have Patricia Rubin, Trish Rubin.
Hi.
Right. Just winding up with the previous session. And like I said, we are heading towards the final session for the evening. And this